gink for
Sorry.
keeping your flies up and stuff. When it gets cold, it does not want to come out of that bottle. You better keep that stuff fairly warm. Stick it in your pocket or something. It seems like, because I haven't used it before, but it seems to gel up pretty good if it gets chilled.
Yeah, very, very quickly. And your fly line is like a slinky and first thing in the morning, which again, this, we've been fishing all summer and you forget that. But the first thing in the morning and you look and you're just going, oh, and you're having to try to stretch your line to get it a little bit more warmed up. And, it was just different, but it was, again, a lot of fun. Just get out in the cooler air and slept good on the second night. The first night was a little bit, we're just going to leave that alone. We were at Huzaw, which is an active campground, and lots of party music going, because that's what people do. But
They have
it
the
was
family
something
side and the zoo side, because they had a Halloween thing going on, and the other, and the time we made our reservations, we ended up on what they call the zoo side.
Zoo.
So
you
Yeah.
can imagine, Roger and Judy, and then Steve and I on the zoo side. We'll just leave it at that. We were looking around going, did they really say that? Was that really what it was? A little, I think the curfew is 1 a.m., which is a little bit, I'm good with 9:30. But yeah, the first night was a little bit interesting. Second night, we had the whole entire place. There was not another. It was Roger further down and we were up, and that was pretty cool, because you could actually hear the coyotes howling and all kinds of stuff. So It was good. It was a good getaway. But I will go ahead and start, and mostly some of this is just different materials. Again, we talked about shopping quite a bit, and should I get it, should I not get it, what's it used for, and then we'll kind of go through any questions. Just jump in if anybody has anything at all, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm not saying, I'm getting a whole bunch of texts, and I'm sorry if nope, not work related. And by the way, the zoo side does have cell reception, just in case anybody wanted to know. So I think I've switched. No, I didn't switch over camera. So I have a great big hook in there. Am I clear on? Is that good, Mick, as far as
looks good to me.
size? Okay. So I went with a 1/0 on this, and again, mostly just to show some different materials on this. And if we've got time, I'll do a second one that kind of steps it down a little bit and goes to a size 8. But this one I wanted to show more on some of the technique as far as with, and I'm just going to do, again, we talked about a little bit as far as freestyle. With this size weight, a lot of us fish for bass as well. And I think it is something where between trout, we always think smaller, go smaller, go smaller. This is another one just to have, kind of in the box, and also just as far as with some techniques. So I'm just going to start in with my thread, get that going in here, and until I've been traveling because all my stuff's laying everywhere. The other thing is that you can add lead. I didn't add a cone head on. I didn't add a bead at all. I keep my lead on a bobbin, and as far as all the different sizes and things like this. And I think on the application, I'll just show you as far as I'll get this kind of back out of the way too. But what I like with keeping it on my bobbin is there's a little bit less waste that happens. So I can hold it in here. You can come around, you can get those touching wraps, come in, and it's laid in there right where I want it. And I've talked about this. I label a lot of different things, but I have orange handle scissors. I know a lot of folks helicopter this off. They might pinch it off or anything. My scissors are labeled. And you can come in, you can pinch that off. It's right where, if I had a bead or cone on here, I could push that up. Right here, it's fine where it is. And now I'm just going to go into kind of some tail section. And with this part of it, I'm going to use marabou on, I know we're all familiar with marabou, and for our area, we tend to do a lot of woolly buggers. Woolly buggers can take a lot of different looks. It's like talking about cracklebacks. Cracklebacks can, you know, everybody's got their rhyme or reason what works. So marabou feathers come in a wide variety of lengths and colors. And just like we talked about with hackle and things like that too, is if you're able to shop in person and look at it, go ahead, take it out of the pack and kind of see what the feathers look like, the straight part of it, and then also that they're not all too leafy, basically. So here's purple. I mean, again, you can go with a lot of different colors. I do have a preference. So for winter time, I tend to go with orange, olive, and purple. And I don't know why. It's just what I've gotten used to. But when you're looking at a marabou feather like this, and we've talked about the different parts of it, you know, kind of pull it out, what's usable, what's not. You have to figure about half of it's not. But when you're going for a larger streamer, I'll actually leave the tail portion or leave this thinner part on just for that length on there. We talked about earlier before everybody jumped on as far as doing articulated too. So you could. Now, if you're doing the traditional with a woolly bugger, coming in and just actually tearing these, I've done this a couple times, but the difference is before cutting, so it looks like a haircut versus just being able to come in and tear these off. It just gives a better flow to it. Just gives a little bit more natural look as you're tying. So I don't cut on the ends of my streamers. I actually leave them where it's a little bit more, and I can kind of turn this a little bit. So you have kind of that more free form shape coming off the back. I'll actually get a different feather on that. And same thing. So when you find them and they're all woven, as you're tying with them, I actually go through and I'll look and I'm like, yep, that one makes the cut. No, that one doesn't make the cut. The other ones I save for other things. But you can see again, that long leggy part, something that you might want to get rid of if you're doing a traditional just on a woolly bugger. Just nub it down where it gets to more the feathered portion instead of all these long legs. This one, since I'm going a little bit longer, I'm going to go ahead and same proportions. We tend to think of these streamers and we go all the way back out here and we go, oh, well, it's a streamer. It's got to be all that long. I don't. I tend to go a little bit more, same proportion. So the hook shank, come back. I've got my resting spot, which is almost at my hook point. Come in. And the other thing is that when you're taking these over the top, and if you go too fast, it's going to roll. So instead, up and over, bring it around again. And now I'm going to cinch it in. Some people prefer up, some go down. I go down on this. And then I'm going to come in and put another wrap in. If you were doing it just a traditional on a woolly bugger, you could actually just palmer that all the way up. Add in, whoops, that rolled. Yay. Just what you want. I'll blame it on fishing. Get a couple more anchors in there. All right, so that you've got this in. Now at this stage, you come in with your marabou, just twist it, get it in close. That'll give you a nice clean. I'm going to come in, I'm going to tuck in those ends. It's kind of keeping in proportion with that. And the other thing is, and we talk about as far as like licking your materials, don't do it. My fingers are already turning black just from that black. But the other colors, if you lick it, you're going to end up with just kind of having it all over. Plus, yeah, just don't do it. Now that we're getting back in person and things like that too, it's just not a good practice. I often have a wet sponge underneath, and if I just need to get my fingers wet, I'll just dab it on that. If I, we talked about static before, and we're almost getting to that time of year too. So as I get ready to tie, oftentimes, yep, static card. So I'll spray my hands with static card, and it keeps it as far as from like having lotion or extra lotion on my hands. And then the other thing too, just for that static, but yep, straight up bounce sheets, as opposed to, again, like licking your fingers, licking the material too much. And so anyway, there's my 101 on that. So now on everything, I love flash. I love it on streamers. I want that action to come in to play as well. And so I have kind of a black crystal flash, and this comes again, just like everything else, into every color. And I love just the translucent, how it picks up the light. It's probably all on the fishermen, not necessarily on the fish. And then I have a semi. This one has a little bit of a crink to it. And then some straight up Flashabou, which is a lot more smooth. So you can use a lot of different ones. I think for new tires, I think Crystal Flash on this capable side is a little bit easier to work with. I guess just the teeth of it or something, it tends to stay in place. And so I'm just going to come in, going to grab some of that, cut it. And on positioning flash, and we see folks that kind of struggle with this. And so I'm just going to come in. I'm at my 45, so I'm directly on my side. I'm going to come in, going to lay it back over, anchor that in. And now I'm just going to pull this. Now I'm actually going to make like a little bulb there, but now it lays it almost exactly on the same side on both. You can leave this extra if you want to. I do a lot of finishing work at the end. If you want to cut it a little bit more, come in and cut it. That's fine. So you've got pretty much on that part as far as the streamer side, and gives a little bit of flash. I like to layer colors in here. And as far as with, again, we talked about purple, as far as another color, again, I don't know what it does for fish or not. I just like it. But I would do the exact same process. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to go a little bit shorter on my measurement here. So I've got what I want to work with there. I'm going to pinch it on top here. As I go up over, I'm not going too fast, so I don't roll it. Going up over, and then I'm going to come back in the next one and anchor that in. Plus you're pinching, and so you're not letting it roll. So on that one, again, now on something like this too, you could continue just to build it all the way up to the front, finish it out. Again, if you had a cone head on here, if you were putting a face on the end of it, you could continue and just do Marabou flash, and just go all the way up. I like at the end when you can finish it in and have a little bit of action, and whether or not you're using some grizzly to help with that action or not. I'm going to use a couple different materials here, and they're not newer anymore, but they are a little bit different. And again, when you see things in the store and you're like, I don't know what that's for. So this one is a UV, and it's a flex wrap. And what it has is the black little rubber legs in it, along with some dubbing and some UV, and then it has purple and a little bit of squirrel tail. Sorry, that was that's my messy housekeeping. Here's another one that has olive, has a little bit of UV in it, but the rubber legs are already in here. So on this fly, I wouldn't necessarily even need to add in any grizzly or anything else. This is just going to be a quick wrap. As I've talked about before, is you'll waste a lot less material if you can learn to work with it in your hand, as opposed to cutting off sections. So if I just cut off this much, I'm going to have an inch left after. And it's something where if you can learn to work with it in your hand as you apply it in. So same thing, I'm just going to tie this in just like I would a chenille or anything else. I'm going to come in, I'm going to anchor it. And then I'm just going to move my thread up and out of the way. And again, this is just kind of a rough view on this. Now, as I'm going through, I'll just kind of wad it so that I can work with this. But I'm going to move this back, much like I would lay on any natural fibers. But you can see how leggy it just got. And there, it's a built-in kind of like a brush that we use on Game Changers and things like that, but it has the rubber legs already in it. Just kind of keep it back so that it's getting a nice, even wrap in there. So again, you can keep equal tension, don't let up at all. And it's not something where you have to be as meticulous, like on some of them where we're brushing it back and we're trying to pull all that back. This will kind of find its own way through. So it's a little bit different. So again, you can kind of get the idea on that. You come in, you're going to finish it off just about the same, just anchor it in. That was a mess. Gonna anchor it. And you could continue then again with, if you wanted to add more marabou up at the front, again, if you have a cone head on this, heavy weighted fly works great for coming out from the banks and then pulling it out kind of to your seam as far as the fishing wise. So I'll just go ahead and I'm going to finish this one off and then I'll go to another one. You guys are also quiet. Anybody have any questions on anything? Is anybody still on here? No.
Amy, with the marabou that you cut off, do you use that or you just throw it away?
Well, I will use it for other things, as far as if I just wanted to add a strip in of maybe some color. They're still usable parts. What I found for quite a while was that I just kept holding on to things that I never went back to use. So a lot of times too, I'll look at like that one, like this one that I cut off, and you know, just kind of showing the difference between a cut and then just like the torn, or you can come in and tear it. Yeah, there's still a lot of usable. So if I were doing a crackleback or anything else, I could easily, you know, tie that in, fold it back over, get the look that I want. There's still a lot of usable, but when you end up with an entire bin of stuff that you never come back to on your scraps, it's just time to part with it, in my opinion. But a lot of times too, and again, I tried to on this, I got really tired of having all these little 1/2-inch strips, and it's just practice, just working with your material, same as you would with chenille or something like that. Just being able to work with that. But yeah, I used to have a whole Kleenex box. I've got a big Lowe's bucket underneath here, and I'm fortunate for my tying area too, that nobody sees it. I get to clean it up myself. So a lot of stuff goes on the floor. Sometimes I'll go through it before I actually take the whole shop back to it and clean it up. Anybody have any? You're welcome.
I got one more thing, Amy, or just for everybody in general. And I just heard it that Colin Powell, he was a commander-in-chief, not chief commander-in-chief, but used for a commander. He just passed away from coronavirus.
He just passed away this morning, didn't he?
Just, I just heard it, so.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Okay, that's all I have to say. I'm gonna go back
Thank you. Go to our regular programming. It is, yeah, I actually think I saw that this morning or heard it on the way home too. So yeah, that was a lot of good things. For anything, so I did go ahead and add a bead in on this one too. And I think a lot of times we've talked about slotted beads versus just the standard beads. And a lot of times I think that's a challenge as far as holding in your hand, trying to get, you know, your hook point to go through on the smaller hole and then being able to push that up. And then also it's like, what do you do with this? Because it keeps wanting to move. And so again, with the lead portion of that, now I really don't need a lot of extra weight to this because it's going to weight it. But one of the things that I found, so I'll put down just kind of a little bit of a thread base here. Don't use any real glue on this, but one of the things with the wire, so I went down a little bit. I just don't need that the same weight on here, but I just want to keep everything kind of positioned in. And so again, it depends on if your thread gets in your way or not, can come around. I can just put in a couple in there. And again, you can pull it off. You can then finish it, or you can come back in with your scissors. Kind of have that where I just keep laying stuff everywhere. But with a little bit of thread underneath, it's not going to slide so much. And now I just want to push it in. Thumbnails work. Just push it in there. Got a little bit of stuff coming off there. Wasn't a very good wrap. And you can kind of anchor it in as well. So I want to come back. That was a really bad one. Let's see. That means my thread's going to break next, because that's the way it works. And I don't pinch them down flat. You can definitely, if you've got some jewelry tool or anything, you can pinch that flat. There's apparently a theory that if you pinch it a certain way, it's supposed to be the way it rides. I don't know. I think Al Beatty's on here. He might know. He's the legend. So on this one, I'm going to go in and do a little bit more of a standard with our with our leech patterns, which are really big here. The leech patterns, and I've done this one before too. And this one, I don't mix up colors so much. So if I wanted rust, I'd use rust marabou. If I want an olive, I'd use an olive marabou. Olive comes in, I don't know, I think there's like 500 shades of olive. But anyway, you can see that if you're in the store and lighting and different things too, this one has much more of a green look to it. This one's more of a dirty green. And then also black. So I'm just going to do it black on black with the leech. And this is the leech yarn. Leech patterns for us are great. Actually, not just winter, but they're pretty good year round. And you can change up the bead color to anything that you want. Sometimes bright orange works great. So egg sucking leech. Black also works well for us too. So I'm going to work on with the black on leech, and I'm going to use black marabou as far as a matching. And on this one, and I do not use just straight off of the sheet on this. Actually, I'll cut, because I find that working with this size in my hand, I'm just not there yet. But if you can work from it straight from the pack, you'll probably waste less than I do. So on some of these, and some of them have really, really thick quill stems on here. And then I also get into some of the softer side, a little bit more. So when you're picking material, it's not just because the one out here on the end and that's what I'm going with. Be ready to kind of look through, grab one or two. And I don't know whose job it is to sew all these together, but wow, they do a great job. But then if you need to loosen them, you come in and you can kind of loosen in on the weave and separate them out. I have one full box that just has marabou, because once these are out and about, I don't put them back in a bag. I just have a bin. So again, you can kind of cut them, get in there, and then you're able to separate those out. So this one, nah, probably not making the cut for what I want it for. This one's okay, but it's missing the part that I actually want. So you have to be ready to go through your materials. And again, it's not just grabbing the first thing. Oh, well, it's marabou. I'm just going to use that. Kind of relates to cruddier looking flies sometimes if you don't just take the care on the materials. And on this, So I really like the way the tail section doesn't have some long leggy stuff. It has like this break in there that I'm like, ooh, I kind of like that part of it. I'm going to measure out as far as the same length. So I don't want, again, we've seen a lot of new tires and they're like, oh, big feather, and it comes off the back, and you get a lot of mishits on that. So I want it kind of appropriate to the size. Come in about the measurement of the hook shank on that. Come in and twist it. Come over, position it. Get another one, anchoring it, and a third one. If I were just doing, again, this is a leech, right? If I just do that, that would look like a leech. I just want to add a little bit more dimension to this. And I like the mohair leech materials. I think it gives that brushed up. And doing there, make sure that's nice and anchored in. Come back in. And if you twist this a little bit, come in with your scissors right at your hook shank. Trust your thread wraps that you're not going to have one that's errant. And come back in. So now I'm just back behind the hook point a little bit in here. And I'm going to come in now with my mohair material. You can put more lead under here if you don't need chenille. I don't use those with chenille. So this stuff is crazy stuff, right? Just yarn. I'm gonna take off a fairly decent little section of this, about 10 inches, if that. And it has a grain to it. I know it doesn't look like it at first because it wants to go, and it's not the same as using some of our other flash materials. I'm going to tie it in. I come in at my 45 degree, so that it's angled there. Come around, I'm going to wrap it. And then just going to go up here, and I'm going to get my thread out of the way. If you have a thread holder, great. I do not use, I have a rotary vise. I don't use it for this. This is actually one where I think it takes a lot of care. Just if you rotary this, you're not going to get the full effects of the mohair. And so I'm going to pull all this because I want it to go kind of that north-south, basically in line with the hook shank. So I'm going to get a good stretch of it going. And I'm just coming over. And every single one, we've talked about this. Jim Stanley has the great thing is if you can go hijack your wife's earring backs. If not, they do sell those in packs. Earring backs cover up your hook point because you're really working this fly over and over. And then as you get a couple wraps in here, we've talked about different materials. So I like the regular old golf cleaning golf brush, but I really want to rough this up. So I can come in. I'm not doing that so much on this part of it. You could and really rough it up, getting it going, but it tends to bring out more fibers than I actually want to work with. I want to go back and brush it after, or as I've done 2 or 3 wraps, come in and you almost like scrub it. I don't think there's a, can you see how that starts really bulking up? And the whole thing is that we want, and this part looks really thin, and then about 4 inches up from that, I get a really good section on there. It starts getting really bulky on the yarn. I'm gonna wrap a couple quick ones so I can get to that really good section. But this would also be, again, going back to your materials. You can kind of scrub on it. Now we got some that really goes. So this is a non-flash, non-everything. It's just basically 2 materials on here. You can see how that starts really getting a profile to it. Again, you can do this any color that you would like. Rust, purple, blacks. I don't add any flash on this. About every couple wraps, you're just going to keep brushing it. That's where, again, just kind of having your tools handy so that you don't get too far ahead of yourself and get this all wrapped on like a woolly bugger. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, it's supposed to be crazy. It's got a lot of crazy hair going on. And definitely don't forget the fly. So you come around. I mean, we're not just working in one dimension. So make sure you come underneath. Sorry, knocked you guys. And this yarn is incredibly strong too. So you think at first, oh, well, I can't kind of scruff it that much because it's going to break. It'll hold up for you. And it's always equal tension as you're coming around. Whoop. And I would say I actually have heavier tension than some, but I want this yarn to go where I want it to go. I don't want it to start going its own direction. So it's a semi-quick tie. I mean, it's not take you very long. And once you get up to the end, I'm going to come in, going to bulk it up behind that bead as well. Same finish as far as tying it in. Anchor
So
that
is
in.
it primarily a trout fly or multi-species, and is it always stripped across riffles, or what kind of water do you typically use it in?
So this is, I've had good luck with, well, bluegill, bass. Bass will do this in a multi different colors in spring. And especially if you come across on some of the more juvenile, but it is something where you're casting it in, letting it sink, let it do what it's supposed to do, and then cast it back towards you. And so normally I always go at an angle. It wouldn't be something where I would either on a moving, I would go downstream and then strip it back up towards me. But it would be something you can easily use these on lakes. Often I think you hear of balance leeches, which would just be a jig, and then you actually put a pin to extend it. Leeches can be used in almost any water, and a lot of things go after them. I've had catfish go after them, which I wasn't really intending. But it just really depends on kind of the feel. It's a little bit heavier. So this is a number size 8, and then you have the bead on here too. So you'd fish it much like you would any streamer, in my opinion. Other people might have fished these and have other thoughts on them. But yeah, the leech pattern does pretty well. And again, rust in our areas does really, really well any time of the year, and especially in fall right now. So that's what I got, folks, with my 2 little patterns. Anybody have anything they want to tie or any questions?
I bet you
Got a
that
lot
leech
of-
pattern would work really good for walleye. When we fish walleye in Merritt Reservoir, we use leeches under a bobber.
Yep.
And they kill it. And I'll bet you that'd be a good pattern for walleye.
And it has just the right so it doesn't feel as heavy as some of the streamers. Like this first one that I started here, the timing on this cast, and again, you can imagine with the cone head and everything else, even though this doesn't absorb any water, it's just a different feel. So again, you've got a little bit of distance. This is a little bit smaller. You can actually downsize this even and make really small ones. You could go with something, you know, in a 10 or a 12 on a leech pattern, just rough up all this, and then you're working basically what we would do a woolly bugger here. But woolly buggers will catch almost anything around here. It's just a matter of, to me, it's kind of a two-step fly. This one, I don't know. I've had equal amounts. Woolly buggers are definitely go-to by all means, but this is just kind of a different one. It gets a little bit lower than a woolly bugger without a bead on it or without a lot of weight. So that's why I've liked it. It actually gets down and kind of bounces almost along the bottom. We're playing that right. Anybody? Nothing? Y'all are just such the audience tonight. So well, I've got everybody's attention though. I will tell you. So next Monday night, we will have a guest on. Hold your applause, but Ken House is actually going to be on our video call next week, and he's going to talk about fishing in Montana.
Nice.
No way.
Honest,
No way.
I swear to you, it is true. And for any new folks on here too, so Ken House came in as a participant. He's been a volunteer for over 10 years. And so Mick, do we have a like count? I want to make sure. I know he's not on this call at all, so I'll go ahead and spill the beans. Yeah, Ken is coming over to my house. We have everybody on that I can see. Okay.
Yes.
So Ken House is coming over to my house next week, and he's under the pretext that he will be talking about Montana coming on. Please don't miss next week. Terry, we're awarding him with the Phil Johnson Award. So on the screen, and it's always a surprise. It's always a secret. So please, if you see Ken this week, you heard nothing. Do not ruin it. We have never given out one that anybody had a heads up, because you know he won't show up, right? Any award people, they don't show up, right? So we're doing that for him. Todd will be on our call next week as well, and we'll have a few other guests on there from his past.
I
So
guess we have
in a little bit.
I'm having breakfast
April
with him Wednesday.
dispensation for him to tell nothing but fisherman truth.
I know. He was all over it. So and talk about the epitome of Ken House. When I talked to him, and I thought, oh, you know, it's how am I ever going to get a hold of Merm and not Ken and try to, you know, make this thing happen. And so I sent him an email, and I'm like, hey, Ken, would you want to come on our Monday night? And can you do the, you know, talk about Montana? Because he takes a group out there every year and guides. And so he said, yeah, he sent back and he said, I'll call you next week. He said, I'm in Florida. He drove Don Aird's moving truck down there for him. That would be Ken.
Yeah.
Just helped out.
that's Ken.
He helped out another volunteer. He's like, sure, I'll drive your moving truck down to Florida for you. And so that was where he was coming back from. But please keep it a secret. It is it's very, very important. But please join us next week as well.
What kind of
Pretty
an
excited.
award is it, Amy?
I'm not telling you, Walt. Can you
Don't
keep a
tell
secret or
Walt.
not?
Don't
Are you
tell
going?
Walt.
Are you going to breakfast this Wednesday, Walt?
Yes.
Okay,
Keep
then I
your
can't
mouth
tell you.
shut.
I can't tell you.
I would never tell anybody anything.
We're gonna give him the Montana Fishing Award. That's what we're gonna give him, is the Montana
you go.
Fishing Award.
That's good.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. So
I already gave him a Montana Fishing Award.
well, he gets
Because you
another
went with
one
him.
So yeah, but anyway, if folks want to, and we are gonna actually, he'll talk about, he's been out there, oh my gosh, I don't know how many times, and he knows it like the back of his hand. if he had family out there. And so, he
He was
will talk.
He was stationed there.
Yeah, he's
Yep,
been
he
going
will.
back and forth for 50 years.
I know. So he will be talking about, and he knows every nook and cranny. He knows every place to stay. And if anybody knows Ken, he does not like to spend $1 more than what Ken, wants to pay. But so he'll give you all the good deals too. And he'll tell you all the places to check out. But he's a wealth of information and has done a huge amount of work for us in St. Louis. So that's a pretty big deal, very big deal on that part of it too. So
I think he's
Anybody,
one of the chief money makers.
ATM Ken.
Yeah.
ATM Ken. Every time I see Ken, so during COVID, he would drive by my house. We only live a couple miles apart. He would drive by my house, and the little alligator clips that you can pick up stuff on the floor, like the infomercial ones that when you fall and you can't pick stuff up or whatever, but he would actually drive by my house and reach one of those alligator clips out of the window to hand me a check. And so, yeah, he's got a lot of connections on that too. But I think for a couple of years, and every time I saw him, he's digging in a pocket. He goes, just a minute. I think I got a check here. And so, yeah, he's done a great job of getting a lot of funds for St. Louis to the point we don't need. I mean, we need nothing. It's just amazing for that support. So it'll be pretty cool. Very, very cool night. And again, I think he might be getting on the computer at his own house, Terry. Who knows? He might have,
No.
he might have advanced.
Ken is, if you look up Luddite in a dictionary, you will see a picture of Ken House.
So Ken has a flip phone still, not the cool kind of flip phone. Ken has a flip phone. And what's funny is Ken is really responsive too. So whatever his flip phone's doing, it's working. Because if you call him, he's always calling you back. I sent him an email. He was down in Florida and he immediately replied. So I don't know. He maybe he does have that new amazing flip phone kind. I'm not thinking so, but he's self-proclaimed going, no, I don't need to learn it. I don't want to do it. So pretty funny on that. Well, folks, I have nothing else. Does anybody have any questions or anything? I know I just kind of went through 2 flies that everybody probably already knows or uses. It didn't look like we had any new folks on here. So thanks for everybody's patience on those 2 flies. But anything at all? Any late breaking announcements? Anything?
How'd your tent work out?
It was wonderful. In fact, I want a shirt that says, on the front it says Kodiak, and then on the back it says, call me when you have a real tent. I want that shirt. But no, it was great. And again, we had a little bit of temperature change. The other thing is it feels like it's running an oven. You have to open the windows during the daytime. It holds that canvas holds a lot of heat in there. But very happy. I mean, we'll put it to a test. We've got 3 more times before the end of the year, but it was a good investment. Glad to have it. Next thing is a new sleeping pad and also a new sleeping bag. But that's why we just keep doing this stuff, right? It's because every time you keep figuring out, oh, I think I'd really like to have one of these.
May I suggest if you're going to go tenting that you forego the sleeping pad and go with a cot?
We have cots.
Do you? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I joke, but well, my comment is I laugh and joke, but I don't play. No, my tent, when you open it up, it looks like Harry Potter's tent. And what we've been using for years was like a summer tent that was vented on the top. It was a great big octagon. And so it had the tent, or the vents all around the top.
Yeah.
So we used all those insulated blankets and we would cinch those together, and they went all the way around the top and then a whole nother tarp over the top. And we've camped December and January, not a problem at all. The canvas it's pretty sweet. It's a little bit smaller but no, you open this up and when you're talking cots, a table, boot dryers, and electric heater, This time we were spoiled this weekend.
Just
I
remember,
knew, I knew you were gonna cough it up.
and just remember with a
Electric-
canvas tent and it's raining, do not, under any circumstances, touch that
Touch-
canvas.
There you go.
Don't you
No.
remember? Don't you remember that as a kid? Do not
Oh, yeah.
touch the sides. Do not touch the sides. It's going to leak in if you do that. Yeah. This
My dad had a World War II Army wall tent, 8x10, that he used to put up. And we'd go up to a place called Fish Creek Ponds, and I guess I was about 5 or 6. And it'd start to rain, and I'd go start touching. My dad used to get so mad because
just
I
to
was
see if
touched
it
over
would-
his bed.
just to see if it would leak. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was no, we didn't have any. It was chilly overnight, but we didn't have any of the extreme stuff. And this one, we're happy with it. We'll see. And it was a lot easier than the Octagon one because again, you get the Octagon one set up and then you got to drape this whole
Yeah.
thing around it. Anyway, we've got a little, this was my first time trying to set it up and I didn't do very well with the stakes. Apparently you do one thing before you do the stakes, but it's supposed to be where one person can set that up. That one person won't be me, but one person can. And the advantage for that is that I could come in late and someone else might already have the tent set up. Might happen, but that was the big selling point on it. So
I thought that Roger was gonna come and steal your heaters from you.
giving him the heater buddy if he needed it, but he got it all worked out on his. He was comfy. So Roger has the fancy one. He had heaters and apparently he has stairs like that go upstairs. I don't know. We've never seen it inside. I walked over. I'm like, what's the Red Rover? Can Roger come over? So that we could go out and fish. But Judy's very tolerant of our craziness with fishing.
Where's the next camping or fishing site gonna be?
Lane Springs, we're going on Halloween. So
That's
Lane Springs
south
right out.
below
It's
Rolla.
south of Rolla. Yep. It's right outside of Rolla. And we'll catch it on the last day before they close those gates. After that, you gotta walk up a mile downhill and then you gotta walk 4 miles uphill to get to your car. So it's like this going downhill,
Yeah.
which is all great. It's when you gotta go up this way. In fact, yesterday when we were fishing and Roger was going further and further upstream and I kept watching him go upstream and I'm like, no, because then I just have to walk all the way back. And so he went and explored, but I stayed closer. But yeah,
Question for
Lane
you, Amy.
Springs.
A question for you, Amy. I'm just, next Monday, is it the same link as this link for today?
It's that's what we're shooting for as far as staying on the Zoom link too. With our guest and CEO, he doesn't like Zoom, but we already have this set up. So I'm staying with Zoom, Al.
Thank you. And all I needed to know is this the one I clicked to get there next week?
Yes.
Yes.
Is
Very
there
good.
a
Thank
way
you.
Is there a way to have this thing permanently set up so you can just click on it?
Yeah, click the button that says leave, Walt.
Bye-bye, Walt.
Weird.
Bye-bye, Walt.
Woo!
See you
Oh,
guys.
man.
See everyone next week. Take care now.
Tight lines, my friends.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll be on the same channel next week.
Amen. Thanks, Andy, for taking care of that.
You're welcome. Take care. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care.